Great. Thanks everyone for joining me this morning to learn about motion control with multimodal AI. So I've seen a few talks at this conference that was saying like multi-modal AI. So I don't know, I say multimodal, it's the same thing, right? Before I get started and talk about tech stuff, a little bit about me. My name's Charlie Gerard. I go by DevCharlie on multiple places on the internet. I am currently a senior research engineer at CrowdStrike, a cybersecurity company. If you feel like you've heard about CrowdStrike, but you don't remember why or how or when, don't worry about it, don't Google it, just trust me that it is a great company. I'm not paid to say this. It is the best job I've ever had. I kind of celebrated my 1-year anniversary earlier this week. So it is, sometimes bad things happen, but what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, I guess. In tech in general, I'm also an author and an instructor on front-end masters. Both of these things were about TensorFlow.js. And overall, I'm kind of like a creative technologist. So I like to push the boundaries of what can be done with tech. I've done a lot of experiments, mostly using JavaScript, but technology can be very creative. It doesn't matter what tool you're using or what language or whatever. And I included at the bottom a few personal hobbies that I started kind of doing this year, because as engineers, we like to probably grow our technical knowledge, but I think growing as a person and trying new things is also interesting. And I wanted to show you this picture that was taken just a few days ago, because at the beginning of the conference, I think Jason Langsdorff was talking about how at conferences you can make friends and you can really create good connections. And this picture was actually taken just a few days ago. You might notice, you might recognize the people behind me. On the left is Rachel, who is actually going to be the closing keynote of this conference, and I hope you're all going to be there. It's probably going to be amazing. And on the right is my friend Pili, who is so social that by the end of the conference, you probably would have talked to her at least once. But I've met these two people at conferences before, and then, I don't know, randomly you just end up on a road trip together, hiking to the top of a little mountain, staying in a fire lookout, and eating peanut butter sandwiches together. So you never know what's going to happen when you meet people at conferences. And I thought, I felt very grateful yesterday when I was rehearsing this talk, and I wanted to kind of show you how you can make friends. But maybe you don't care about that. So without no good switch any whatsoever, can LLMs be used for motion control? Serious business. So I don't really have the time in this talk to kind of explain to you how I got to asking myself this question. But just, I've said before in my intro that I've played with TensorFlow.js in the past. So I've done quite a lot of experiments in JavaScript in the browser to control things and interfaces using motion control. And because, as a research engineer, it's even more important for me to keep in touch with innovative technologies, I kind of have to learn a bit more about what Gen AI is and LLMs. And because I like motion control, I was just like, can I try to mix both together so it gives me the energy and motivation to actually spend potentially evenings and nights learning about this? So when I ask these questions like that, or when I tell people that I'm giving a talk about motion control with LLM, it's kind of like I get this reaction of like, motion control? So you might want to assume that the answer to this question is no. But if the answer is no, and then you move on with your life, it's not a really interesting talk, right? So usually when I create side projects, I kind of try to think, instead of the answer being yes or no, it's more like how? How can LLMs be used for motion control? So this is a much more interesting question. Then it opens a lot of doors, a lot of rabbit holes. And you might not end up creating things that were exactly what you had in mind in the beginning, but you're sure that if you're asking yourself how, you'll actually end up learning something, even if in the end it turns out that it's not a great tool to be doing this. But so we're going to kind of, obviously, now I'm going to try to show you that it works, but we'll see about the demo gods. So the inspiration for this project, I don't know if any of you have heard of the Room-E project by Jared Ficklin. The first time that I came across it, it was kind of like a walkthrough demo video on YouTube from 2013. So I've been thinking about this for 12 years. Not every day, on and off. But yesterday, when Kent was giving his talk, and he was talking about why don't we have Jarvis yet? So I always keep thinking about projects like this. So just to briefly explain to you what it is, you can see there's two lights, and Jared is pointing at one of the lights. And there's like a Kinect camera in the middle, that's like a depth sensor. And what he was trying to experiment with is building a room that is contextually aware of what the person is doing. So instead of you having to tell exactly the technology, the system, what you want it to do, it kind of understands a little bit more. So he would actually point at one of the lights and say to the system, turn this light on. And at the moment, if you have home automation systems and you just say, like, turn this light on, the AI is not going to know which light you're talking about. And using depth sensor and motion tracking, he built a system that was aware of where the lights were, and depending on which one you were pointing at, like we as humans, if we know that you're pointing in one direction, you will understand the object that I'm talking about. But systems at the moment don't necessarily know how to do that. And there was more to this project with projectors, where you could walk around a room, and if you say, oh, show me a recipe, then it would be projecting on the wall that you're actually looking at, instead of you having to then adapt to wherever your projector is placed in your house. And sometimes if you watch this kind of futuristic movies, they actually have like projectors on like rails, and they move around, and they're able to actually, or rotate, and they're able to like project in front of you. This is kind of this idea of, instead of you having to maybe be limited by what the tech can do, it actually understands how you act. So I was thinking, okay, using LLMs and Gen AI, can I kind of recreate something a little bit similar so it would understand what I want to do without necessarily telling it explicitly what to do? So we've talked a little bit in a few talks at this conference about multimodal AI, so I'll just say it very briefly. But it's a machine learning system that can process multiple types of data, such as text, images, and sound. So when you interact with an LLM in general, you might be either typing something or feeding it like a code file, or maybe a PDF, or even if you're talking to it, it's like speech to text to LLM. And when we're doing motion control or motion detection, you're using images or a camera feed. If you're using video, video is just a sequence of images. So you can, I wanted to experiment with sending that through different LLMs and seeing if it can potentially detect gesture and then, do magic. So the goal, every time I do some kind of personal research, I set myself a specific goal, because otherwise it could be never-ending. So by the end of this talk, I want to show you that you can control a website or an IoT device with hand movements using Gemini. As you can see, even just replacing Gemini with like another model or trying out different things, that would expand the research. So I just wanted to be able to say, can I do that? So IoT device or website, hand movements, and Gemini. Okay. So before I write any code, when I know what I want to do, I'm thinking about different approaches. It's like, okay, without being limited to what I know I can write or not, it's like, what kind of ideas do I want? So my first approach is like, I want to be able to see if I can rely only on multimodal AI. So Gemini will take screenshots of me in front of the screen, and it would return the best guess for the hand gesture that I'm doing in front of it. And we can start with that kind of small to see what's available, what's possible already or not. Then I'm like, because I've done a lot of things with TensorFlow.js, can I kind of like mix and match? Can I rely on multimodal AI to maybe do a first pass of the gesture that it's detecting, and then kind of like augment it with more complex gestures using raw data from TensorFlow.js? Okay, we're going to try that. And then finally, I'm like, can I do a kind of my DIY version where, let's say, for example, that Gemini can only recognize a certain subset of gestures, and I want a personal gesture, I could create my own little database of gestures. So I can take a screenshot from the camera, convert that image to vector embeddings, save it in a vector database, and then ping again my vector database to do similarity detection, and then use Gemini only with the label that's returned for function calling. That can be, you don't have to do that, but it's interesting if you wanted to maybe, for example, when I'm sending images to Gemini, I don't know if, in terms of privacy, do they store the image or do they actually just use the vector embeddings? Like, I don't know about that. So if I want to create my own little version, you can experiment with that. And then it means you can learn about vector databases as part of that as well, if you want. Okay, so first one, gesture detection with Gemini. So to get started, there's actually a starter repository that's a React app where you can use some code that's already there, where you can detect, you can allow the camera and the microphone, and you can experiment with Gemini. And because the goal of this project was not to learn how to build a React app, I just started with the starter repo, and then I am focusing on the part that I'm interested in, the gesture detection and triggering like some stuff. So now I'm going to show some code, but don't be too attached to, things change all the time now. So if you understand more the steps that are taken or what's important, that matters more. but I just show you so hopefully it makes sense. So the first one, when you are using this repository, is that you can indicate what model you're interested in. Right now, I'm using Gemini 2.0 Flash Live 001, just as of yesterday. So I'm a bit worried if like the change that I just made yesterday is gonna not be good for my demos. But before I was using an experimental model, but let's see if this one works better. Usually, you can also set certain configs. At first here, you can say if you want the AI to reply to you in like audio with voice, or if you just want text, depending on what you're building. If I want to do motion detection and I'm far away from my screen, I prefer if the AI replies to me with audio rather than just text that I would have to come close to the screen to read. But the important thing, one of the important things, is the system instructions. So for the first demo, I just have like a kind of like a simple instruction. I'm just saying, you're my helpful assistant, looking only at the hand in the stream from the webcam. Make your best guess about what your gesture means. Don't ask for additional information. Just make your best judgment. So, demo 1. Oh yeah, by the way, there's like 5 demos in this talk. So if the demo gods are not with me, I am like in trouble. Okay, so hopefully, yeah, that's big enough. Okay, so this is the UI from the open source repository. So on the left, you kind of have the console. There's going to be the output of what the model does, but you're going to be able to hopefully see the label of the gesture that it's detecting. And then in this part here, there's going to be the webcam. I'm going to trigger it. And you're going to hear me say the word like now. It's just a trigger word. It could be any word. It's just that I've done it. I've rehearsed so many times that I would just say the word. I could just say test or hello. It's just what triggers the logic. It's not, you don't have to actually say now. I could say beep boop. It would be the same. OK, so this one, I'm not too worried, but we never know. OK. Now, all right, I'm going to just stop here because I have more demos. OK, but for now, we're like, OK, so Gemini on its own can give me a label that seems to be exactly what I wanted to do. You can experiment with 3 different gestures. You can try to figure out what limits it is. I think at the moment I experiment a lot with 4 gestures. There's thumbs up, thumbs down, and then a peace sign, and then like a stop. Which is interesting, because even when I just do this, just show my palm, it comes back with stop, which is interesting, because as a human, if I do that in front of you, you kind of understand that it's like, just don't come closer. And it just understands. OK, I say understand, right? With like, it just returns the label stop. Cool. But now I want to do something. Because if I just return the label, it's kind of like not really interesting. So we're going to move on to function calling. So for this, we have to start to write certain function declarations. So it's like a schema that's going to tell the AI what function it is able to call, what's available for the AI to call. So we're going to start kind of simple. I have a function that I called toggle light. So I'm just giving it the name of the function. And then I am saying that the function is going to accept parameters of a type of object. It's going to be an object. And the properties, for now there's only one property. It's going to be, the key of the property is like on. It's going to be a Boolean. And I'm just saying that it's the light state. And I'm making it required. So AI should not be calling my toggle light function without an on property that is either true or false. So, and then, when you declare your function, that's actually not necessarily AI related. If you are a front-end engineer, it's pinging an API. So these lights are, the brand is LifeX. They have an API. And here, this API just received like a payload as an object that has a property of like power, and the power is going to take our command of on. That's going to be the string on or off. Then the brightness is going to be 1, and the duration is like how long it takes to turn on or off. And then you ping the API with that object, and it should do the thing. So this is more, general front-end engineering, not necessarily AI related. But the next thing that we need to do is we need to update our system instruction. Because the first instruction that I had is just look at the hand and give me a label. But now I'm just going to say, and call the toggle light function provided. And I'm passing it the declaration in the function declarations in the tools at the end there. So the AI is going to know it has a function called toggle light that is available to call. And I'm just saying, look at the gesture, and then call the function. And I'm going to do the demo, and then I'm going to tell you why I think it's kind of cool. OK, so we're going to toggle a light using a gesture. So that's demo number 2. Same UI. This time, you don't necessarily care about what happens on the left. It's the lights if it works. it should turn on, and then I'm going to try and turn off. Okay. Now. Now. Okay. So what is cool about this is that in the prompt, if I just go back there, I really just said call the toggle light function. I did not say I'm going to do a thumbs up, and then I'm going to do a thumbs down. And if I do a thumbs up, it's positive, so call it with true. And then if I do thumbs down, call it with false. I just say, you get a label of a gesture, and then call toggle light. And it's kind of inferring that, a thumbs up is pretty positive, thumbs down is negative, so it kind of infers that what I'm trying to do is to turn the light on or off. Pretty cool. I'm very happy that it's working. Okay, but now what if I have multiple lights? I have multiple lights. At home, you probably have more than one light. So there's a few changes that we need to do. So now we're going to move on to multi-turn function calling. It's I've also seen it called compositional function calling, and then there was parallel function calling. I think there's some differences, so I'm not exactly sure which one I'm doing, but it's just, I want to be able to call multiple functions. And I want the AI to figure out the order, what it does, and things like that. So now in our function declaration, we need to update the toggle light, because at the moment I just have a command on or off, but now I have two lights, so it will need to know which light I want to turn on. So I'm just updating the schema, and I'm saying that, okay, now you also have to call it with a light ID, that's going to be a number, and I'm just saying it's returned by the getLight function. So now I also have to have a new function, because I'm going to have to kind of fetch the amount of lights that I have, and then it's going to have to figure out which one I want. So the way that I decided to do this, if you have Philips Hue lights at home, it's the same as well, where you have an app, and you can give your lights different names. So just to make it easier, this is called right light, and this is called left light. And this is important because in terms of the parameters that I want to send to the getLight function, I'm saying that the detail, or whatever, is a string, and it's going to be the detail about the light, and I say usually a position. Because what I want to be able to do is I want to be able to point, right? And if I point in a direction, you as a human, you understand the direction. But as an AI, I'm going to say, I want to be able to call the getLight function with either the string right or left. Then it's going to loop through my available lights. It's going to return the ID of the light with the name that matches. So it's that's more not necessarily AI. But yeah, okay. And we need to update the prompt again. Because now that we have two lights and I want to deal with position, it's still looking at the hand in the webcam, and I'm saying, okay, look at which hand is making a gesture. I'm indicating right or left in brackets, but I don't even think I need to do this. You can experiment with your prompt and see how well it works or not. And then I'm saying, okay, call the getLight function provided with the correct hand position. Then make your best guess about if the gesture means light on or off, and call toggle light. So if you decide to experiment with this, you can play around with the prompt and see what it does. Okay, so. Demo 3, multi-turn function calling. This is the one where I need to remember, because sometimes if you work with the get user media, sometimes the camera is switched, right? So I actually forgot. I think it might match the way you see me. So when I do this is my right hand, but I think that it's going to send the video as for you it's left. So let's see if it does what I want. This demo is usually the one that fails. Now, come on.
Since you gestured with your left hand, I'm assuming you want to turn the lights on.
All right, that took a bit of time. All right, so it is my right hand, but because on the camera it's you see left, yeah, it's left. So okay, maybe let me try to do the other one then. Now.
It looks like you're signaling to turn the...
Oh my God, I'm so excited. Okay. This is good, because I think this is why when I updated the model that I'm using yesterday, I was like, oh, maybe it's a better model. So it actually, because the one before, it did not necessarily know what right and left was, which is fine. Some people also sometimes struggle with that. But it's okay, just to go a bit faster, I'm just going to turn them off there. I do have an app, just to make it faster. Okay, so this was multi-turn function calling. Cool. Now let's go a little bit more complicated. So Gemini and TensorFlow.js. So at the moment, it's kind of like I'm turning them on or off, but what if I want to change the color? And I don't want to say it like, oh, turn it green or turn it yellow. I want to be Tony Stark, and I want to point, and I want to be like, and it will change the color. So how do we do this? I'm just going to show you briefly a bit of TensorFlow.js code, just to show you that it's not actually necessarily that difficult. So usually when you use a model for pose detection or anything with TensorFlow, you have to start by importing the models, and then you just instantiate it, and there's what's called a detector. And the important part is that you can call estimate hands. That's just a method on the detector object, and you end up with some predictions. So when that is loaded, usually the length is like, okay, does it see a hand or not in the stream? If there is a hand, you can extract certain key points. So the way that I'm deciding to do the thing, I extract just the key point that's called the pinky finger tip and the thumb tip here. So in the hand model, you actually have a lot of key points around the hand. But depending on the interaction that you want, I only need these ones because I want to do a rotation thingy. And there's a bit of math. I'm not going to go into this, but I extract the x and y coordinates, so just position. And then I just, look at the difference, and I'm calculating an angle. So let's imagine there's like a horizontal line, and I'm starting at that level. I'm looking at the angle that's here. So as I am rotating, I'm just having like an angle. And I'm using that just for the hue value. But I could have kept it a lot simpler. I could have just been like, when the x and y goes up, or like left or whatever, change different things. I don't know why I tried to make it complicated then, but I just did. And yeah, then you just call the API again with this value, with the color value. Okay. Oh, yeah. You need to update, again, your prompt, because now we have, I'm pointing in a, I'm going to point in a direction. It's going to pick the light that I'm trying to turn on. It's going to toggle it based on what I'm trying to do. And then I say, if the user is making a palm gesture, call like the set color function. And the set color is the one that's going to detect the color. So I'm not telling it what a palm gesture looks like or anything. I'm going to do one, and I'm going to do the second gesture, and that is going to do the more custom logic. Okay. I mean, I'm going to say as if it's going to work, but it's supposed to work. Okay. So this is my favorite. But this is also the one that stresses me out the most. Okay, so this is this one. Okay. Now.
Okay, I've toggled the light on the right. Is there anything else?
Now.
Okay. I've set the color to...
No. Whoa! No. Okay. Okay, and I think sometimes there's a delay, so it keeps doing it. That's just a me bad performance thing. So it keeps rotating because I'm basically blasting the API with too many values. That's fine. We don't have to care about that. But now, okay, what if you want to do your own version, right? So I'm just this one I'm gonna have to kind of like go a little bit faster through. But I'm gonna explain it in emoji. So I want to do a gesture in front of my computer. And then I'm going to, in the browser, this is very small, but it's because it's super long. It's even longer than that. I want to convert in the browser the image into vector embeddings so that then I store that in a vector database with a certain description of my gesture. And then, at the moment, this is what it looks like. So, I've been using data stacks, but you can use whatever vector DB you're familiar with or you want to try. And in the UI, I only I only added a collection with 3 different gestures. So, what's also interesting, I don't know if any of you have ever tried to make your own image detection model. But when I was doing my custom things with TensorFlow.js, if you only have 1 sample per gesture, it's not enough, right? But actually here it's working pretty well. So I think my 3 gestures here are, I think I have a custom, thumbs up, a custom peace sign, and a custom stop gesture. And it's just converting into vector embeddings, and then I added a certain description. So what I want to be able to do after that, obviously you would maybe want to have more data in your private database, but to get started, just 3. And what I want to do after is I want to redo, I want live detection. So I want to redo my gesture in front of the computer. I will again transform it into vector embeddings live in the browser, but then this time I'm going to just do a query against my existing database just to do a vector similarity search. that should return the description of the gesture that is the most similar to the one I'm currently doing, and then I just send that to Gemini. And based on the description of the gesture, then you do magic. And the reason why maybe, you would want to do your own one is, again, privacy issues, if you would like to know where your data is. And also, if you do it that way and you know that you kind of transform your image live in the browser into vector embeddings, is that if your vector database gets hacked, it's not really images that are stored, it's vector embeddings. And from what I was reading, it's actually very hard to reconstruct an image from vector embeddings. So even if you get hacked, nobody's gonna, if you train your stuff in pajamas in your house, nobody's gonna be able to reconstruct the image of you in pajamas. And then, yes, you can just send the label or the description to Gemini, and then it will still be able to do certain things. And also, if you want to be able to run something like this maybe in a small IoT device, like you have a camera attached to a Raspberry Pi, and you rewrite that in Python instead of JavaScript, because here I'm using a browser, but if you want to make a little IoT device at home, I don't think you can take screenshots in like a headless browser in Raspberry Pi. That sounds maybe weird, but I haven't tried. So you can kind of like use the same logic or have the same functionality, but just rewrite it in a different way. Okay, so for this one, I just finished it yesterday, so I have to remember what I'm supposed to do. Okay, so I'm just going to open the terminal, because you're going to see live the vector embeddings. This one, there's no column on the left, because we don't really care. And I think that what I was trying to do, this one failed this morning. So I think that I'm going to just do like the thumbs up again, but this time it's only the description that's going to be sent to Gemini, not the picture or anything. So let me see. Now,
I apologize. An error occurred. I was not able to interpret the gesture. Do you like to try again?
let me see something. Do not see the mess.
Okay.
No, not you. I'm sorry. No. I'm going to try again. If I do now.
Okay. I encountered an error again and was unable to interpret the gesture.
We don't care then.
Would you like to try another gesture?
No, it's fine. Okay, so this one is not going to work, but what I wanted to show you is maybe the steps that it's taking here. So anyway, you can see that live in the browser, instead of just sending an image or whatever is actually happening in the other demos, this is the vector embeddings that is then fed into the other function. So what is returned here, so that was a thumbs up. It's like, that was my description that I wrote. Hand gesture with the thumb extended and other figures not visible. The back of the hand is pointed up, whatever. And then I think that it failed when it's time to then take the return, like what's returned by this function, and then call it with the other one. So that's fine. I should have not ended this talk on a failing demo, but we're going to forget that it just happened. And okay, so anyway, just before I finish, there's usually, I haven't written a blog post about it yet, but at some point I will try. But if you are interested in that type of experiments, I usually have them on my personal website at charliegerald.dev. I'm also Charlie Gerald on GitHub. I try to post as much as I do in public repositories, but this thing for now is not, because it's a total mess, and I don't want people to see that. So when I get the time to fix it a little bit, I'll make it public. But I did some links to existing research that is looking at also doing motion control with Multi-Modal AI and Gen AI. But the research that is currently happening by, I was going to say real researchers, but technically I'm a real researcher too. So it's more around nonverbal communication with potentially future humanoid robots. I'm not sure I'm a fan of that, but it's, let's say we all end up with like the Tesla humanoid robots at home. Sometimes you don't want to have only speech to you don't want to only talk to an AI. For example, when I was showing you the example of like when I do stop, you kind of know that I'm saying stop. If we all end up with humanoid robots, you probably want a robot to understand that when you do this, it means don't come closer, even if you don't necessarily have to say the word like stop. So this research is usually, at the moment, around using gesture for interacting with other, more for communication than for controlling lights. And then I did some links for the different models that are available for TensorFlow.js if you want to do custom things, and the link to the open source repository. But anyway, just before I finish, that's the way that I like to experiment with things. Sometimes, if you just follow a blog post that's existing, it's not really necessarily exciting to me. And I know that, I have not yet set up a very smart system at home, but it's really impressive to just being able to point. And it reminds me of the project, the Room E project, where I didn't even have to say, turn this light on. It's like, I can just point. Like, at the moment, I have to have a trigger word to trigger the logic, but I would love at some point if I don't even have to say anything at all, and it will understand the difference between something I'm trying to do versus like, oh, I'm just walking around, and this is not necessarily like a real gesture. Anyway, if you have any question about this, I will be around, definitely at the party. Everybody should go to karaoke, because this is great. And anyway, thank you so much for being with me this morning, and thanks, Cascadia, just for having me again. Thank you.